Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. It's been quite a while I joined out a video, but today we're going to be looking at creating a web application framework using C Sharp from scratch. So this is going to be in a series, and so creating a web application framework in C Sharp is an ambitious but rewarding project. It involves designing the foundational tools and abstractions that allow you to build web applications efficiently. So we're going to be looking at a short introduction to get you started. So first, you need to understand the web framework basics. A web framework provides a set of tools and libraries to build web applications. If you're conversant with web application frameworks in different programming languages, like in JavaScript, we have Express. Or Express is a web application framework built on Node.js. We also have Ruby on Rails. We have Rails, which is the web application framework. And for C Sharp, there's ASP.NET Core. And for Python, we have Django, Flask, the likes. With PHP, also have Laravel. So you need to understand how the APIs you build on these web application frameworks, how they work under the hood. So we're going to be looking at those. So we're going to be exploring things like routing, which involves handling HTTP requests and mapping them to specific functions and controllers. We're also going to explore middlewares, request and response handling, and also templating from scratch. So I'm going to be doing all of this using C Sharp. So this is going to help you build a robust foundation with your knowledge on web application frameworks. So yeah, we're going to get started. So first, I'm going to create a class here. So I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to call that class server. So, yeah, so inside that class, let me have a constructor here. Okay, so let's do this first. I'm going to create a field, private HTTP listener. Now, this HTTP listener is a namespace or a class within the .NET uh, class module that offers you the functionality of helping you listen to HTTP requests that is hitting your application. So um, we have this HTTP listener. Yes. So then I'm going to also create a dictionary that takes in a path and an action. So I'm going to have this private dictionary. Dictionary has a key, which is a string, which is our path, and it has a function uh, that takes in the HTTP listener requests. Okay, and that also takes in the string. So we're going to call this the route. If you're already a backend developer or you're well versed with writing server-side solutions, you understand the concept of routes. With routes, for example, you have a server that is listening on port 5000. Uh, Different routes represent different points of the application where you want to serve different functions, or rather, you want to serve different things. It could be you want to serve an API for authentication, you want to serve an API for retrieving user data and all of that. So the routes allows you different access to the application. Just imagine you have a house that has different doors. So those doors are like routes. Routes gives you access into different parts of the application. So we have the routes here, and we've created an instance, a dictionary instance for this here. So inside the server constructor, we're going to have a prefix, call this a prefix. So this represents the part, that is, you want to listen on a particular port on your local host. So we're going to set the part that we want to listen to, or the server URL we want to listen on, that is the base URL. So we're going to say listener. We've created a new listener. We instantiated a new listener. So on that listener, we're going to say prefixes dot add. So we're going to add the server your port, server URL and ports we want to listen to. So it says add a uniform resource identifier. So we're going to add that URI here. So it's going to be our prefix here. So just after that, we can also have a public void function. So we want to start listening on the port. So to be able to do that, we create this start function here, and then we can start listening. This function here on the HTTP listener class allows you to start listening for requests on that port. So the next we'll do is uh, let's console the write line. So indicates that we've started listening. So we can say server started. Okay. And I'm going to have a loop, a while loop. So while true, if this is true, that the function has started, we're going to create a context. So that context will help us get the requests that we received. We need to get things like the URI, the headers, the query strings, and all of that. You can get all of that using when you call this context here. So we have this listener.get context. Next, I'm going to perform an operation here, but let's leave this open for now. And let's create another function. Now that function will help us process our request. So it's going to be a private void function. So I'm going to say handle request, or let's say process request. So it takes in a parameter, just a single parameter, which is the HTTP listener context. HTTP listener contexts. So let's call that context. So inside this function, we can get the request, like I said earlier, the request from the HTTP listener. After that, we can also get the response. We can say context, the response. So let's have a response text here. I'm going to say response, default response text. And I'm going to say it's equal to 44, not found. Yeah. So there are cases where the response, or rather the request you're getting, maybe the route that was triggered does not exist on your server. You want to return a 404 that route was not found. So next we're going to say if the route, so we have that dictionary here. If the route in that dictionary contains the absolute part, which is the route of the server or the route that was triggered. If the route that was triggered is part of what exists on our server, then do this. So, or rather, if it contains that key, what you do is you say response text. Let me do this. We can say routes. Now the key will be uh, the request URL dot absolute paths. So what we have here is inside this route, like I mentioned earlier on line 8, we have this route dictionary here. So inside of this route dictionary, if the absolute path, which is the route of the server that was triggered on the server that was triggered, if it exists on this server, then the response should be the absolute path. That is the response text. What should be the response should be the absolute path of that request. So I'm going to explain this further soon. So next, we're going to have a buffer for that response text. So we're going to say bytes array. So that's our buffer. So we're going to say encoding okay, so I'm going to import this from the system.text namespace. So UTF-8, so we're going to get the bytes array for this response here. And so I'm going to say response dot content length 64. So the base 64 content length for that response should be sent to the buffer's length. Then I'm also going to say response dot out stream dot write. So I want to write to a stream, the response stream. Now, so I'm going to say write the buffer that was created. Then next we'll do is we're going to set it to 0 here. So right from 0 to the length, the full length of the buffer. So offset 0. So start from 0 and write through the length of that buffer. So then after that, I'm going to have this line here. So I'm going to explain why I have it later. So request rather. Request dot URL dot absolute URL or URI rather dot contains favicon ICO. So if it doesn't contain that, then it should console dot write line. What should we print? Let's print the absolute URI. So requests dot the absolute URI. URL the absolute URI here. So that works. Autocompletes can be annoying sometimes. So after writing to the buffer, next we'll do is we have to close that stream. We have to dispose of it. So we're going to say response dot output stream dot close. Yeah, that works. So we can call this process request function, this void function, we can call it here. I'm passing the context. Exactly. Interesting. Now we want to be able to also add roots. We want to be able to also add roots to our server. And to be able to do that, we're going to have another function. There's going to be a route function. So I'm going to say public void add routes. So it's going to take in two parameters. It's going to take in the path of the route, and it's going to take in a function, HTTP listener requests. So that action is going to take in that action. And so what we're simply doing here is we're just adding that part or the action to the path. So for this part, perform this action. So routes, and we can just say path is equal to action. Good stuff. We look good here. And let's come to our program.cs file. We can take hello world out. And we can initialize the instance of the server we've created. So we can say server and call that server. So let's add that namespace, import that namespace here. So server, it's a server, and our server would take in a prefix. Like you remember, we have a constructor in the server class. So that server constructor is taking in a prefix. The prefix is the absolute URI and the port that we intend to listen from. So we want to listen on port 5000, HTTP local hosts port 5000. Cool. Next we'll do is we're going to add the routes to our server. So we're going to say server dot routes add routes. So let's add just one route first. So in that route, we're going to have to we have a function, an HTTP listener request function, and that function takes in an h1 tag, and in that h1 tag we can say welcome to Ninja Web Framework. Yeah, cool. So let's also have another route. Let's call that route hello. And we can now have, what do we have here? We can say hello and welcome to Ninja Web Framework. Cool. So let's add one more, and let's call that time. So that's going to give us the server time. So let's take this out and let's say server time, and let's concatenate, or rather let's have this say date time the UTC now. Yes. Okay. So that looks good. So let's not forget to start our server. So server.start. Yeah, cool. And so yeah, we're good. We're looking good. So let's debug, run the application, and see whether it works. I'm pretty sure it works. Yes, it's taking some time to get it up. So yeah, we're looking good. Okay, it stopped. Okay. I think we missed out something. So let's get back to our program.cs file. Yes, we need to have this here, and let's kill this and debug again. Yeah, so our server started, and let's check. Okay, so let's say we have this. So if we call this 5000 localhost the Apple 5000, we say welcome to our Ninja Web Framework. So that works. Let's try another route. Now we see hello. Hello and welcome to our Ninja Web Framework. So we're looking good. So let's try the time route. Yeah. Okay, so I'm having this H1 here. So it means the tag was not added completely. So I can add this and apply the changes immediately. And we should look good. So let me refresh. Still not back. Okay, let's try again. Okay, let's restart and see if that stuff resolves our problem. Okay. Okay. Let's try this again. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, so that's about everything for now. So, the purpose of this video is to help you understand what happens under the hood um, when you use web frameworks like ASP.NET Core, or if you're using Node.js with Express, or you're using Laravel with PHP. So all of this happens under the hood. So an HTTP listener request is listening for requests from the port that was opened. And there are also routes added whenever you um, create a new endpoint. New routes are added to that server. So your server is waiting to listen on that route to display whatever information you would want. So this is a very basic um, web application framework. So in subsequent videos, we're going to be moving into more complicated and more complex parts of web application, building web applications frameworks. We're going to be looking at request and response. We're going to be looking at middlewares. We're going to be looking at database integration and all of that. So it's going to be an exciting series, and I'm looking forward to having you. And that'll be all for now. Bye.